Well, welcome to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Vero Beach, and good morning to all. I'm Susan Burt, your pulpit host this morning, and it's our pleasure to have Reverend Sarah York with us to deliver the message later. As you can see, renovation of the chancel has begun. We'll hear more about that in a few moments. But first, it's so good to look out and see your faces. Let me just glance around for a minute. We have not often had this privilege for a long time, have we? It feels good. Thank you for being with us today. And for those of you who are joining us via the internet, whether you be our members who have traveled north for the season, or you have just stumbled on us via YouTube, we welcome you as well. We are really here right now in Vero Beach, Florida, and we are an inclusive and progressive congregation that embraces and serves you however you come to us with all of your humanness. Young, old, gay, straight, trans, black or white, or another full shade or ethnicity, we stand on the side of love to represent you. Whether you wake up happy or grumpy or mopey, be with us for this next hour. I'm so glad that last night I had the opportunity to attend the memorial service in honor of the victims and loved ones of the 5th anniversary of Pulse. It was right here. Hector said their names. Dr. Boujol led the service. Please stop by the Memorial Garden on your way out to the parking lot today and observe the rainbow flags that we planted around the Memorial Garden last evening. I want to thank the Welcoming Congregation Committee for the beautiful planning of that service last night. And now for some other announcements. Next Sunday, we have a wonderful service planned. Rabbi Bernholtz of Temple Beth Shalom will be here. We're so looking forward to that. And invited to attend the service as well and come to coffee hour are members of the temple. And we'll host the coffee hour afterwards in the, I'm not sure whether it's going to be outside or in the, okay, good, in here. Please plan to attend next week, and if you can, maybe you could bring something yummy to serve or to, put on the table, like some fresh fruit or some coffee cake or some sugar-free nibbles, or maybe some brownies with that special chocolate icing that you put on brownies sometimes, the kind I like.
Nothing that you need silverware.
No. It's going to be good, and we're going to have a fun time with them. I'm so glad that they're coming to be with us. And now, let's hear from Al Paramatur about the work that has been done this past week on the chancel and where we're going from here.
Okay, good morning. I would like all these people who were here to stand from Monday. I had a really great group of people. Thank you. Between the work that we did Monday and all of us did and Christy's friend Thomas, we saved approximately $2,200 for preparation for the new flooring. Let's see, what else was I going to mention here? Oh, after the service, we would like to get rid of the last 2 risers. So if a few guys could stay, we've got a chainsaw and some equipment. We will break them up and put the last 2 in the dumpster. I thought we were going to be needing them this morning, so I left them here, but they're not taking the dumpster away until Monday or Tuesday, I guess. So, let's see, what else have we got? Well, I don't know if you all noticed, see, an angel appeared in the door. We're not quite sure how that happened, but we were glad the angel appeared. And I guess this coming week, we'll continue putting the hardboard around. The outlets are going to be moved. And the following week, the floor will be put down. What more can I tell you? That's about it, I think, for now. Let me, for some reason, this monitor isn't on, and that's going to give the choir and other people problems. Better get that on. Okay. There it comes. Okay, good. Oh, I got one more thing. Somebody left this sledgehammer. And I'd like to make a little more money, so I'm opening the bids for the hammer at $15. Do I hear somebody claiming it, or do I hear a bid of $20? Oh, well. See you next Sunday.
Thank you, that was lovely. Good morning. Well, Scott warned me that I would get to preach in a mess. But I have to say that this is indeed a wonderful mess. It speaks of those dedicated volunteers who did all this mess. It speaks of breaking things down in order to build things up. It speaks of honoring our beloved minister, Scott Alexander, while preparing to welcome our interim minister, Karen Anderson. It reminds us that sometimes things get messy when we are going through change, and we just have to hang in there for the adventure. As we enter the summer season and all that it brings, I am reminded of these familiar words from Ralph Waldo Emerson. In this refulgent summer, it has been a luxury to draw the breath of life. The grass grows, the buds burst, the meadow is spotted with fire and gold in the tint of flowers. Ah, so Emerson. I don't usually use the word refulgent, but I really like it. I would have to add that the weeds grow, and the meadow is spotted with chickers and ticks, and the air conditioners work overtime. But yes, in this season of summer abundance, we are invited to take some time apart from our routines, to enjoy the beach, to go on vacations, and to refresh our intimacy with this generous blue-green earth. Let's join together now in singing our first hymn of the morning, 203, or it'll also be up on the screen. All creatures of the earth and sky, stand if you're comfortable.
now's the time when we kindle the chalice flame. We'll follow the words as Sarah lights the flame. Kindling the flame of our faith, we call upon the Spirit of life to grant protection, and in protection, strength, and in strength, understanding, and in understanding, perception of justice, and in perception of justice, the love of it, and in the love of it, the love of all life. Thank you.
Chalice, chalice, burning bright, help remind us with your light of how we'd like to live each day with love and truth helping lead the way.
And now the time for all ages. This morning, Bob and Barbara Lipton will be joining us. Bob first to read the story, and then Barbara to do the Pulse Nightclub Remembrance. Bob, are you ready to come up?
Yes, I am.
Oh, you sneaked up on me.
Good morning. I am Bob Lipton. I serve this congregation as a member of the Welcoming Congregation Subcommittee, and I also serve this congregation as Barbara Lipton's husband. And I'm here to share with you the story for all ages, the time for all ages, written by Leslie Newman, and her first name is often written in American speak as Leslie. Heather's favorite number is 2. She has 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 hands, and 2 feet. Heather also has 2 mommies, Mama Jane and Mama Kate. Mama Kate is a doctor. She has 2 stethoscopes, so she and Heather can listen to each other's heartbeats. Mama Jane is a carpenter. She has 2 hammers, so she and Heather can build things together. Heather and her mommies have lots of fun together. On sunny days, they go to the park. On rainy days, they stay inside and make cookies. One day, Mama Kate and Mama Jane tell Heather that they have a surprise for her. "You're going to start school next week," Mama Kate says. "There will be lots of other kids to play with and a teacher named Miss Molly." The big day arrives, and Mama Kate and Mama Jane take Heather to her new school. There are so many things to play with. Soon it's time for Mama Jane and Mama Kate to leave. They kiss Heather goodbye, and Heather cries, but only a little. Heather has lots of fun at her new school. All the children sit in a circle while Miss Molly reads them a story about a boy whose father is a veterinarian. Asks Miss Molly, "Who knows what a veterinarian is?" "I do. My mommy is a veterinarian," one says. "A veterinarian is an animal doctor." "My daddy's a people doctor," shouts David. "My mom is a people doctor too," Heather shouts even louder. "What does your daddy do?" David asks Heather. "I don't have a daddy," Heather says. She looks around the circle and wonders, am I the only one here who doesn't have a daddy? "I have an idea," Miss Molly says. "Let's all draw a picture of our families." One draws his mommy, daddy, and a big brother, Carl. Myra draws her mommy and her sister Rachel playing in the park. Stacy draws her daddy and her papa reading her stories. Joshua hangs up the picture he drew of his mommy and stepfather, dropping him off at his daddy's house. Miss Molly looks at all the pictures. "It doesn't matter how many mommies or how many daddies your family has," Miss Molly says. "It doesn't matter if your family has sisters or brothers or cousins or grandma or grandpa or uncles or aunts. Each family is special. The most important thing about family is that all people in the family love each other. Soon, Heather's first day of school is over. When Mama Kate and Mama Jane arrive to pick her up, Heather shows them all the pictures. Heather points to her picture and says, "I love my mommies the best." Mama Kate and Mama Jane both laugh as Heather gives each of them 2 kisses. Then she takes their hands and they all head home. Thank you for allowing me to share the time for all ages with you. And now I'll introduce my wife, Barbara.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Barbara Lipton, and I serve this congregation as co-chair of the Welcoming Congregation. And we had a lovely memorial service last night. We had attendance of about 35 people. We were delighted with that. And Reverend Crystal Bujol did an awesome job for us. And Christy, our sexton, was amazing. She moved us from outside inside because it was raining. But this slide I want you just to look at and concentrate on for a moment. This is a photograph of the victims of the Pulse nightclub, and we just want to remember them in our hearts today. Thank you. This would be the time we would normally sing the children out for their classes, but it doesn't look like we have any children. We do have one? Oh, well, there we go. So, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. So,
As you journey, may you know, love and hope go with you, love and hope go with you, learn and grow, learn and grow.
Very good. Thank you, Barbara and Bob. Now is the time for us to express our financial commitment to the ongoing work in which the congregation shares. And every second Sunday of the month is always Sustenance Sunday. So today's undesignated offerings will be given to Indian River County Food Pantry. So if you throw some money in the plate, it will go to them. If you write a check to be given to the food pantry, be sure to write food pantry on the little, the line down at the bottom. You know, what's it called? Yeah, that line. So that our accountant will channel the money to them. This fellowship needs your continuing and faithful financial generosity. If you're at home viewing the service, you can either use the convenient Donate tab found in the yellow ribbon on our UUFVB website, or just mail us a check. Our office is located at 1590 27th Avenue, Vero Beach, Florida. Thank you for your support. We now pause for a little music as the ushers collect your contributions. This fellowship truly cares about each other, like an extended family. And so we take a few moments now to share the joys and the sorrows and prayers that are on our hearts. Barbara Zitz is recovering from a fall that injured her back, but she's home. Her daughter's with her, and she's very positive about her recovery. We continue to send our love to Stuart Barnes and Pete Kersey, who are undergoing medical treatments. And some good news, Donna and Jim Brewer's baby grandson is home and doing well. Sigh of relief for everyone. And now for the celebrations that have come to our attention. Anniversaries this week. That means a lot of time together for some of these folks. This week, Brian Tui and Violetta Fioravanti. Dick and Denise Haight. And then next week, the person will announce next week's anniversaries. Birthdays this week, and that means birthday cake with chocolate icing. Laura Driver and Jack Stiefel's birthday is June 16th, and Joe Caldwell's is June 17th. I see him back there. Happy birthday, happy anniversary to all. Our ritual of stone and water. Now we know that the power of ritual and ceremony in our lives has nurtured us for countless generations. And many of them have to do with stones and water, crystals and water. We now begin our ritual of stones and water, a time to show reverence for someone or something precious who may need our support. But before you come forward for this ritual, who of you would like for me to drop a stone in the water for you? Raise your hand, please. 5, 6, 9, 10. Thank you. Now, I ask all of you to call to your hearts and minds those people who you would like to celebrate or pray for or send love to, and come forward now and send your love to them as we softly hymn and later sing Spirit of Life. Let our ritual begin.
We have two readings this morning, and the first one is a poem by Mary Oliver. Some questions you might ask. Is the soul solid like iron? Or is it tender and breakable like the wings of a moth in the beak of the owl? Who has it and who doesn't? I keep looking around me. The face of the moose is as sad as the face of Jesus. The swan opens her white wings slowly. In the fall, the black bear carries leaves into the darkness. One question leads to another. Does it have a shape, like an iceberg, like the eye of a hummingbird? Does it have one lung, like the snake or the scallop? Why should I have it, and not the anteater who loves her children? Why should I have it, and not the camel? Come to think of it, what about the maple trees? What about the blue iris? What about all the little stones sitting alone in the moonlight? What about roses and lemons and their shining leaves? What about the grass?
And now we're going to rest in the grace of the world so we might prepare our minds for the anthem and for Reverend York's message. We begin by resting in the grace of our own bodies. Our body, our longest continually occupied home. Let's sink into our bodies now. Get them quiet, make our body feel fluffy and comfortable for just a few moments, and breathe. Rest your hands on your lap with your palms facing upward and outward so you can accept all the beauty and love and grace in this room. And breathe again. While you're resting, I will share a poem by Wendell Berry. We'll take some time at the end to feel the essence of the poem, and after I ring the bell, we'll have the anthem. The Peace of Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives might be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light, and for a time I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free.
Father, ere your instant fills together all that lives, as we breathe, our minds see clearly, cooks our foods and heats our homes. Raging whirlwind, whispered breezes, violent gale and gentle cloud, with a blade as sharp as morning east, we ask you, be here now. Brother fire, great transformer, share the passion of the sun. In our hearts your warm revives us, cooks our food and heats our homes. Flaming candle, blood within us, blazing desert will to grow. With the one directing power star, we ask you, be here now. Sister water, ever flowing ocean, river, pond and rain, drink we now and quench our thirsting, cleanse us, we begin again. Mist and ice, a host of changes, all that courage will allow. With the cup, the holy chalices, we ask you, be here now. Lover, spirit, intuition, in the center of our souls. In your love we find relation, all connected we are whole. Timeless mystery, quiet conscience, deepest values voice inside. With the drum and with the cauldron, this we ask you, be our God.
Thank you, thank you. There has been a lot of sex going on at our house. Well, not at our house exactly, but at the pond right out in back of us, where the wood duck rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. Or the ibis, or the little blue, or the sandhill cranes, or the great egret, or those noisy whistling ducks. Every morning I sit out on the back porch and I observe the pond life. Like Wendell Berry, I come into the peace of wild things. I come into the presence of still water. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. My husband Chuck feeds the birds, and the birds feed me. Back to the sex. We have 3 nesting boxes at the edge of the pond, designed for whistling ducks. Wood ducks have claimed 2 of them. I don't know if you can see that guy up there, but anyway, there they are. Last month, I noted when they were laying eggs and when the female started sitting on the eggs. I marked my calendar, and about a month later, I watched for one-day-old ducklings to come out of the box. Now, I had studied up on wood duck habits, and I learned that the chicks can drop from 50 feet onto the ground. And I just have to share this video with you that I love about these ducks. I hope the sound is working. If it isn't, I'll narrate it a little bit. I hope the video is working. I think it's coming. Maybe right there. It's okay if it's not working. We'll be without it. It is quite wonderful. But look up PBS. It's called a documentary. So if you Google it, Google the documentary on it's a PBS thing. It's so precious because it shows the risk that these little creatures take. They can't fly, and they come down from 50 feet. Their mom is down there at the bottom calling them, and they just have this instinct to come out and take that risk of diving into nothing down to their mama below. Well, the gestation for wood ducks, I learned, is 27 to 32 days. On day 30 and 31, I saw a mama duck on the pond. And then she flew away, and she did not come back. I was afraid she had abandoned her nest. I'd read that they do that. I told Chuck about this, and he said he would go check the nest since she was not there. But she was there. When he checked, the real mama duck flew out, totally traumatized, skittered across the pond, and flew away. To say that I felt guilty would be an understatement. Thanks to me, she did abandon the nest. I called a friend with an incubator, thinking that we might have to hatch those eggs ourselves. She said we could do that, but to give Mama a chance to come back first. Chuck and I took shifts, watching for her return. Late afternoon, still no Mama. Decision time. Should we try to save the babies or hope for Mama's return? At that point, we chose to act on behalf of the maternal instinct and stay out of the way. The next day, the mama was on the pond with 5 chicks. And I, being human, was taxed with forethought of grief. I knew what was going to happen next. When we lived in North Carolina, we had a pond, and we would watch the geese or the ducks parade onto the pond with about 10 babies. And then there were 9, and then 8, and so on. Snapping turtles. I'm glad to report that our mama duck here disappeared within hours and hid with her chicks. We have not seen them since. Predators. These too, part of the peace of wild things. We who have reverence for the web of creation acknowledge that the snapping turtle is no less a part of it than the duckling. Does the wood duck have a soul? I think so. Does the snapping turtle have a soul? I suppose so. But I have greater affection for the soul of the duckling. As many of you know, Chuck and I raised goats in North Carolina. As a farmer, I loved them, but we also raised them to sell them. And I took their milk. I sold it, or I made cheese from it, or I fed it to the chickens, who were also there to provide me with eggs. It is all part of how we humans have learned to relate to the natural world. Now, it all began with Adam, you know, of Adam and Eve. Adam, who named the plants and the animals, and was, according to the first chapter of Genesis, given, quote, dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over every creeping thing. God charged Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply, and to fill the earth and subdue it. This charge evolved into holy sanction for human beings to exploit nature and its creatures for our use. In ancient Britain, however, a very different perspective emerged among Christians in the Celtic tradition. These Christians were so at odds with the Roman Church that they were dubbed the contrary way. They were persecuted for their heretical beliefs and all but wiped out. So the title for today's sermon is The Contrary Way, because I want to look at those Celtic heresies and I want to celebrate them. Many of these heresies are the same ones that distinguish our own Unitarian Universalism. For example, Celts, like us, did not see human beings as depraved and sinful, fallen from grace. We have a capacity for good and bad behavior, they said. And also, like us, they saw Jesus as a human being. They linked him with an image of spiritual power. He was not the only Son of God who came to redeem us from our sinful ways. He was a soul friend, a companion of the heart, an example of what we can become. The Celtic Christians built their religion on some of the pagan Druid beliefs. Not only did divine energy come in feminine as well as masculine forms, but, get this, women were equal in authority and education with men. Imagine that, way back in the, 4th, 5th, 6th century. It's taking us a really long time to catch up with them. It was also from the ancient Druid tradition that they experienced the sacredness of the natural world. The Celtic Christians' heresy was pantheism. Pantheism was a belief that divine Holy Spirit dwells in all of creation, including the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the cattle, and every creeping thing, including the snapping turtle. Well, they were condemned for affirming that there is divine energy in everything. In their theology, as in ours, yes, we sort of do have a theology, you know. In their theology, as in ours, humans are part of creation right along with other creatures. We're not isolated from forces of the environment. It is not our role to either be stewards or exploiters of creation. We're just part of it. And we're charged to be mindful of how our part affects the whole. If the salmon don't run, or the cows don't give milk, or if the hummingbirds don't return in the spring, well, then we have to consider how our human activities have disrupted the fragile balance of life. Our role is to make our home in that context, ever conscious that nature is not ours to subdue or dominate because it is not ours, period. We don't own it. We're just part of it. In the poem that I read this morning, the poet asks, who has a soul? What about the anteater? What about the maple trees? What about the little stones? What about the grass? Celtic stories are filled with fish, otters, birds. They all have souls. One saint had a horse that is said to have wept when he died. Who has a soul? And who doesn't? And who decides? Well, in the 7th century, the Roman Church decided. And it was disastrous for Celtic Christianity. In the 4th century, there had been a controversy over whether or not women had souls. really. So, from the Roman Orthodox point of view, the idea of the anteater or the horse having a soul was going too far. Anyway, in 664, they held a little inquisition. They condemned the Celtic monks for wearing the hairstyle of the pagan druids. I Googled all over the place to get a picture of it. I couldn't find one. It's different. It's not the usual, tonsure thing. And they also condemned them and persecuted them for giving women equal authority. And they condemned the Celtic Christians for worshiping outdoors among the trees. Get this, it was a sin to relate to nature as sacred. Tragically, Celtic Christianity was almost completely wiped out. Even today, I suspect a lot of Roman Catholics think Pope Francis is a little loony for stating that animals go to heaven. Several years ago, I went on a pilgrimage to the island of Iona off the western coast of Scotland, one of the oldest sites of Celtic tradition. People go there from all over the world because it is a place where you feel your relationship to the holy in nature. Any of you here been there? Just curious. Someplace to go. Not only that, it is a place where the veil between the seen and the unseen worlds is thinner, where a mystical connection with things spiritual is commonplace. This mystical quality also got the Celts in trouble. I like the story of an older Irish countrywoman who was confronted by a Roman priest. "Do you believe in fairies?" he asked. And she answered, "I do not, but they're there." The mystical is part of everyday life there. Every family has someone with a second sight. They can move into the unseen world and back again. They might say, "Aunt Vi is having a wee spell," or "She's gone over the hedge again." Now, I did not see any fairies, but I experienced something extraordinary while I was on Iona. I went there for a women's spirituality retreat. My husband Chuck was working in England, so he met up with me in Scotland, and he went with me to Iona. And since my hotel was reserved for women only for the retreat, he checked into lodgings nearby and planned to leave early the next morning. Well, the retreat didn't begin until the evening, and so Chuck and I had about 2 hours to take a walk. We went first to the Abbey, and there Chuck lit a candle for his son Tom before we walked toward the north end of the island. Tom had taken his own life only 4 months before that. Menacing black thunderheads billowed above and sputtered those first harbingers of a serious storm. I said, "Let's turn back." But Chuck kept going. He was a man on a mission. In retrospect, I think he was having a wee spell. He didn't know why, but he was drawn out to a rocky point at the North Beach. And when he got as far as he could go, he took a stone that he had picked up earlier, and he tossed it out into the sea. He told me he felt a mysterious urge to leave a symbol of his son Tom there with his Scottish ancestors. His Campbell clan had come from that region. The clouds exploded as we started back, and we were both drenched. I didn't tell any of the women in our group about this incident, until I heard something that happened to one of them. Elsa was the mother of a young man in his 20s who had made several suicide attempts. On a day that we spent in solitude and silence, Elsa chose to go to the North Beach, where, for reasons she could not explain, she picked up a rock, went out to the farthest point, and threw it into the sea. She said it was a symbol of letting go of being able to control what her son chose to do with his life. It was a gesture of freedom to her. Something about the island had invited these parents to give their pain to the rock and give the rock to the sea. And the sea and the rock and the divine and human spirits of the island offered healing for their aching hearts. Perhaps the landscape of the island became the landscape of the soul, rooted in a spirit-filled world that is blessed and timeless. I was only on Iona for 1 week, but I explored most of it on foot, hiking through farms called crofts, heather, bogs, and beaches inhabited by the ubiquitous sheep. On my last afternoon, I decided to set out toward the North Beach and let the island speak to me. The sun of early spring streaked a brisk, chilly wind with balmy gusts. My path took me through several small crofts where the sheep and lambs were accustomed to pilgrim invasions. If I approached the animals, though, they bolted from their grazing and they scurried away. I was drawn to the north end of the island, where the white beaches and clear waters, as blue as the Caribbean, merge with rugged rocky shores. Finding a sheltered cove with exposure to the sun, I lay down on my back, directly on the warm sand, arms outstretched. I was aware of what a vulnerable posture this was. And I was grateful for these moments when I felt embraced in a world that was beautiful and good. And I must have slipped into a light sleep, for I was startled by a nudge on my leg. I raised my head, and there I was, nose to nose with a sheep and 2 lambs. We shared a very brief moment of mutual astonishment before they scrambled over a dune and out of sight. The sheep, so commonplace on the island, were certainly not wild animals. But that moment when one of them nudged me, that moment of touching that was initiated by the sheep and not by me, that moment felt like a gift of wildness. It may be a gift that is available more than we know. Most of the time, I'm not in a posture for receiving it. Even in the wilderness of Alaska, when I witnessed bears a few yards away devouring a spawning salmon or encountered elk lounging in the campground, I was the sightseer, not the companion. I related to the creatures of the wild with binoculars or camera, as if I could tame them with lens and shutter. The Celtic way invites us to assume a posture that is receptive to the gifts of wildness, engaging it rather than witnessing or observing it. We live in a culture with an infrastructure built upon the practice of exploitation. So we need to create opportunities for ourselves and for others to feel our kinship with the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and the cattle of the field and with every creeping thing, to connect with them soul to soul. These are times when the veil between the seen and the unseen world becomes thinner, when we're receptive to experiencing the holy in the ordinary. We discover a connection that is always available to us. Celtic people knew this. A holy force is in the wind. A holy force is in the wind that breathes on the sea and in the wave of the ocean. It's in the vulture upon the rocks and the beam of the sun. It's in the salmon, in the water, and the lake and the plain. It's in the spirits of those we love. My colleague, Tom Owen Toll, calls Unitarian Universalists free-thinking mystics with hands. Like the Druids and the Christians, the Celtic Christians, we have chosen the contrary way. It's a way that brings us into intimate relationship with the holy in all things. It invites us to pass through the hedge, where eternity intersects with time, where there's no distinction between the seen and the unseen, no distinction between what is sacred and mundane. It's a way that calls us to heal our planet because our blood pulses through the coursing rivers and our hearts beat with the rhythms of the sea. It's a way not of being fallen from grace, but of being uplifted by grace. It is a way not of doctrine or dogma, but of affirmation and celebration. It is not a way of original sin, but of original blessing. So, do we believe in fairies? Of course not. But they're there. Let's join now together in singing our final hymn, For the Earth Forever Turning. And I offer you now this blessing from the Celtic tradition. May the blessing of light be on you, light without and light within. May the blessed sunshine shine on you and warm your heart till it glows like a great peat fire, so that the stranger may come and be warmed by it, and also a friend. And may the light shine out of two eyes of you, like a candle set in the two windows of a house, bidding the wanderer come in out of the storm. And may the blessing of the rain be on you, the soft, sweet rain. May it fall upon your spirits so that all little flowers may spring up and shed their sweetness on the air. And may the blessings of the great rains be on you, and may they beat upon your spirit and wash it fair and clean. And leave there many a shining pool where the blue of heaven shines, and sometimes a star. And may the blessings of the earth be on you, the great round earth. May you ever have a kindly greeting for those you pass as you're going along the roads. May the earth be soft under you when you rest upon it, tired at the end of a day. And may it rest easy over you when at the last you lay out under it. May it rest so lightly over you that your soul may be off from under it quickly, and up and off and on its way to God. And now may the Spirit of life bless you all, and bless you kindly.